Am I the only one that feels weird about? The obvious example is, of course, Elon Musk. Billionaire, robber baron, doesn't even pretend to do the philanthropy part. Elon Musk finds it very important to bring up that, like, he's trained in physics. He has a bachelor's degree in physics, and
well, I do have a physics background. That's helpful as a foundation.
And very specifically, he got into a PhD program, very prestigious, very exclusive, and then he dropped out because it's very important to him to do the things he dreamed to do, which was, work illegally in our country as an illegal immigrant. Okay. Except Elon Musk never got into a PhD program, and Elon Musk does not have a bachelor's in physics. He didn't finish. He lies about that, allegedly. Some suspect the fact that people kept bringing this up, the fact that he does not have a bachelor's in physics, is why he bought Twitter, because he was mad that people kept bringing it up, because it's very important to him that you and I think, that actually he's super good at physics, actually. Here's a link to this thing that went around Twitter, and it's a picture of Elon Musk's homework, obviously from undergrad Physics 1 class, but he's talking about it like it's a very impressive, rigorous derivation of an example that's in Survey and Jewett. Like, okay, Elon Musk. I mean, wow. In countries that value academics like China and India and Norway, you couldn't reach age 15 without doing this math. My goodness, how impressive. He says some pages are missing, and it's like, obviously, it's just a homework set. Why are you so silly, Elon Musk? This is very basic, and everyone can tell when they look at it. This is a very simple problem from the very first physics class you take. This was big with Steve Jobs, too. He had a pocket full of stories about how as a child he was super interested in how things worked, and he remembered the moment he realized he was smarter than his dad because he knew how microphones worked. And there's this story from the Walter Isaacson book about that one semester that Steve Jobs went to undergrad as an English major. He's very proud to say he attended upperclassmen physics courses. So, I mean, if that's a true story, just like sitting in on a 300 level thermodynamics class without having done the prerequisites, not able to follow along because he hasn't done the prerequisites, not doing the homework, not doing the exams because he's not enrolled in the course, and being like, wow, that was a really formative moment for me. I attended a physics course. Oh my goodness. Why is this a formative story in your life, Steve Jobs? You didn't learn thermodynamics. It's weird. It just seems like the public billionaires. There's like a couple thousand billionaires, and most of them understand the importance of silence. But there are these billionaires that remain in the public eye. They really, really want to be famous, and it's very important to them, it seems, to be seen as if they're really intelligent. They really want to be like, I'm actually very smart. I could have done physics. I could have been a famous physicist.
I mean, like, my charity is starting to drop away. Like, I kind of understand what she's saying, but a lot of these people's fields of business are also kind of directly implicated in, at the very least, like physics adjacent things, right? If you're talking about like computers, if you're talking about spaceships and satellites. So I mean, like, it kind of makes sense that people are going to ask them questions that are a little bit related to it, however dumb that might be. But I feel like, especially for Elon, like, you can find examples of if people are stepping really far outside of their area of expertise and then saying like really stupid things, that's cause for criticism, I would say. But I feel like we just haven't shown that yet. It just seems like she's really mad that that billionaires are having an opinion on or saying things about physics. I don't even know if anything like egregious has been said yet.
But instead, I had to make billions of dollars exploiting the workforce and destroying the planet. Jeff Bezos goes to Princeton as a physics major, and he does really well, and he has this story about how he goes to quantum mechanics.
I went to Princeton primarily because I wanted to study physics, and it's such a fantastic place to study physics, and things went fairly well until I got to quantum mechanics, and there were about 30 people in the class by that point, and it was so hard for me. And I just remember there was a point in this where I realized I'm never going to be a great physicist. There were 3 or 4 people in the class whose brains were so clearly wired differently to process these highly abstract concepts in so much more. I mean, I was doing well in terms of the grades I was getting, but for me, it was laborious, hard work.
So I think this is really interesting in comparison to Bill Gates and Elon Musk. Like, Bezos is at a prestigious school doing the work, and he makes it to quantum mechanics, and he's like, I don't want to do this math. Fine, totally valid, totally fine. Here's another story from like a podcast, I think. In this clip, the host reads a quote.
I feel like I'm being super pedantic. It didn't sound like he was saying he didn't want to do the math. It sounded like he was saying conceptually he had a really hard time intuiting like what they were even talking about. That's being very, very, very pedantic, but whatever, okay.
Here's another story from like a podcast, I think. In this clip, the host reads a quote from Walter Isaacson, where Walter Isaacson compares Jeff Bezos to Albert Einstein. And to Jeff Bezos' credit, he responds the way you're supposed to respond to Albert.
Oh, I see the quote. I'm often asked who, of the people living today, I would consider to be in the same league as those I have written about as a biographer. Leonardo da Vinci, Benjamin Franklin, Ada Lovelace, is that where the NVIDIA architecture comes from? Steve Jobs and Albert Einstein. All were very smart, but that's not what made them special. Smart people are a dime a dozen and often don't amount to much. What counts is being creative and imaginative. That's what makes someone a true innovator, and that's why my answer to the question is Jeff Bezos. Okay. I'd have to know why he picked Bezos, unless, I mean, Amazon arguably transformed a lot of American retail, shipping, and AWS. Jesus. I don't know if this is as an egregious a quote as she makes it out to be, though. But
Albert Einstein. And to Jeff Bezos' credit, he responds the way you're supposed to respond, Ed Witten, when someone calls you Albert Einstein, which is to laugh and say, absolutely not, but here's my skill set. Oh no, I feel like I'm being super nice to Jeff Bezos in this video. But this is the thing, right? Jeff Bezos understands what physics is and understands that he doesn't have...
Like, that quotation had nothing, like, oh God, fuck. I haven't watched her other video, and maybe I'm not being charitable here, but it sounds like she's actually being a little bit stem-brained here. the comparison wasn't to just say that he was as smart as them or as smart in physics as them or whatever. She's making that sound so much more narrow. Like, this is like a very STEM brained, like that was clearly not the comparison.
Which is to laugh and say, absolutely not, but here's my skill set. Oh no, I feel like I'm being super nice to Jeff Bezos in this video. But this is the thing, right? Jeff Bezos understands what physics is and understands that he doesn't have the training to do that. And I think he realizes that, like, maybe he could go to school for that, but he's not going to. So he shouldn't be waxing philosophical on what the future of physics looks like, right? He understands that that would be silly and weird. Of course, he does go on to be like, actually, I'm just an inventor. I just think different, which is kind of the same. Walter Isaacson syndrome, you know, this habit of just picking anecdotes from your early life and being like, these are the formative moments. This is what sets me out against everyone else. This little story is why I'm a billionaire. Is really interesting when you actually think about the stories for what they are. Like, Steve Jobs just sits in a class, unenrolled, doesn't do the homework or the exams. He's not qualified for the course, so he's probably not able to follow the material. And he's like, this is what changed my life. This is why I'm a billionaire. But it's weird because Steve Jobs was a billionaire. He could have just learned physics if he wanted to. Bill Gates being like, man, Richard Feynman, the greatest teacher I never had. It's just like, babe, you're literally a billionaire. Get in your private jet, fly to Princeton, New Jersey, walk onto Princeton's campus, find the Princeton Center for Theoretical Science, walk in, say, hi, I would like to pay 4 theoretical physicists to come live on my compound and teach me physics and do research with me, and I'll give you $3 million per person per year. And guess what? Some of them would take you up on it, and you would learn physics, and you would be on physics papers. You could just do that. Like, you just being like, oh, I wish I could do physics. Like, bro, you have $1 billion, more than $1 billion. Just do the thing you want to do. Stop talking about it. Paying a couple physicists a couple $1 million a year to teach you physics is pocket change to you. You could just learn physics. Instead, you just talk about how much you wanted to learn physics and how important it is to you that people know that you wanted to do that at some point in your life. Like Elon Musk, it seems essential to what he wants his persona to be in the world is that he is a guy with a physics degree and he could just go to college. He has billions of dollars. Just go to college. Like, if it's so important for...
It feels like she's just like if you're a billionaire, she's just like throwing you all together. Like, has Bill Gates said, or I wish he would provide what has Bill Gates said, God, I wish I did physics instead of whatever other boring bullshit I'm doing. Like, like there are a lot of things I wish I studied at school that I think would be cool. Like, we talk about like the legal arc, the lawyer stuff, and biology, and like there's a lot of interests that I have, but I'm not going to quit my job that I excel at, you know, a ton and make a lot of money doing and are very successful at, or am very successful at, to go to school. I don't even know what this, like, okay.
Physics degree, and he could just go to college. He has billions of dollars. Just go to college. Like, if it's so important for you all, just do the thing. Just learn the material. I don't understand why it keeps coming up. It's so strange. I don't know if I've explained it correctly. Like, if I'm on a plane and someone asks what I do, and I say, oh, I'm a physicist, and they go, oh, you know, I always wanted to study physics, I'm not gonna look that person in the face and like, just go to college, man, because like, obviously, normal people like you and I don't have $1 billion. Normal people like you and I have life things, money things, tragedy things, illnesses, all these things that could prevent us from just going to college and doing the thing you want to do, right? But billionaires have unlimited resources.
That's absolutely not true. You're unfortunately still limited by the one human resource that limits us all, which is fucking time. Like, depending upon how much I wanted to just fight on this point, like I could argue in a roundabout way, like a decently wealthy person, like an upper middle class person might even have a better opportunity to just switch around like what they're studying or switch around like what they're interested in, assuming they're not carrying like a ton of debt from their last degree, than somebody who's running like these massive businesses. They're probably not at the time. It's like, okay, well, I'm just going to quit this whole like financial venture, this whole business that I know I'm really good at, and I'm just going to go back to school to do like a physics degree. That's probably an incredibly unlikely scenario for anybody who is extremely successful in one of those fields. It's just such a weird...
So it's really strange that they expect to get credit as like smart points for being like, you know, I kind of thought I could do physics. Like, okay, do it, man. You have $1 billion. Getting a physics degree is an incredibly achievable goal for someone with $1 billion in unlimited time. You could just, what's stopping you? Go do the thing. I also think it's kind of funny that the way they do this Walter Isaacson syndrome has been adopted by people who would enjoy that lifestyle but don't yet have it. Like, they think just like putting on a black turtleneck and being like, you know, I thought I could do physics sometimes is going to turn them into a billionaire. I think a funny example of this is Stephen Wolfram. Stephen Wolfram is, of course, like a famous person and probably a millionaire. He's also a real physicist. He got his PhD, God, really...
Sorry, what do you mean by wealth isn't a finite resource? Wealth is created in economies. You create wealth as economies grow. It's not a finite thing. If one person becomes more wealthy, it doesn't mean they're taking it from somebody else. Like, wealth can grow amongst all the parties participating in an economy.
Really young, like 21, I think. He got a teaching position right away. He won the MacArthur Genius Grant, and he left academia to start his company. And he's responsible for, you know, Wolfram Alpha and Mathematica, great tools. He's a super successful and impressive person, but also he thinks he has a theory of everything, and the physicists are just refusing to look through the telescope. It's like a real Galileo situation. But Stephen Wolfram is very interesting to me because it seems like he lives his life as if he is preparing the notes to hand over to Walter Isaacson. As soon as Walter Isaacson like taps him on the head and he's like, you're next. He tracks the number of emails he sends and receives every day and his schedule every day and the way he spends his time. And he has for years and years and years. He has a website where he just takes reader questions and answers them. And funnily enough, there's one from someone asking how good Steve Jobs is at physics, which is kind of a full circle moment for this video. And the person wrote that letter because Steve Jobs tells stories about how, like, yeah, I was actually super good at physics, but then, you know, I decided to just be a billionaire instead. Once you notice it, you'll never not notice it.
Wait, like, what do you mean? What is the, like, I don't think Did Steve Jobs just make the decision, I'm just going to become a billionaire? What does that mean? Like,
Jobs is at physics, which is kind of a full circle moment for this.
what is this? Stephen Wolfram, okay. Did Steve Jobs ever try to explain math or physics to you? No, I don't think so. It turns out I know somebody who knew Steve in high school. The person who I know who knew Steve in high school is now a physicist. Actually, I saw him recently at Washington. He was like, yeah, Steve was always kind of a weird person in high school. He was one of the kids who would go to some other nearby high school, which my friend also did, and go learn calculus and things. I knew that bit about Steve, that even though he was like, I don't know anything about this math stuff, etc., he actually had learned calc when he was in high school, and that was one of those kinds of outer band pieces of information that I happen to have. Okay.
Video. And the person wrote that letter because Steve Jobs tells stories about how, like, yeah, I was actually super good at physics, but then, I decided to just be a billionaire instead. Once you notice it, you'll never not notice it. The billionaires are always talking about physics, which is weird because that's not their field, actually. It seems to me, for some reason, it's really important for these public billionaires to appear smart. So the interviewers ask them questions, and they need to come up with these little anecdotes that are relatable, but also make them seem super smart. So, like, the Price is Right wheel is spinning in their head, and it just lands on physics. And they just say, yeah, I actually thought about doing physics one time, so I'm actually really smart. And I think this highlights how uneducated they are on the topics they're thinking about, because they just randomly throw physics, like physics is the smartest science, even though no physicist would ever think that they're smarter than a biologist or a paleontologist or literally any human with any job, because your job doesn't dictate your intelligence in any way. It's weird. It's weird that it's always
Smashing the X button to doubt, but
physics.
okay.
It wouldn't be that noticeable if Elon Musk laid claim to physics, and then Steve Jobs was like, I'm into botany, and Bezos was like, I'm into chemistry, and Bill Gates was like, I'm into material science, but they all...
The thing is, like, I don't even disagree with her that some people do this, Elon Musk. Like, I'm sure there are people that absolutely fucking do this, Elon Musk. We've seen him do this before. I just feel like she didn't give any examples of it. Like saying that, like, oh, I used to be good at math or physics in high school, or oh, I was interested in this in college, but there was something else that I was just better at. I don't think anything bad is happening here. I don't think it's a crime. I don't think they're doing anything wrong. I don't think...
shows physics. They all think like, oh, I have to say something smart. Physics. That's what smart people say, right? Physics. And it's so silly. It's so silly and weird. Why are they all doing it?
Isn't it harder to learn physics than almost any other science? I wouldn't say that. I think it just super depends on, one, it depends probably on what you have an inclination for. Like if you're very good at like math, then that probably helps you a lot in physics. But like, I don't know if it's the same type of brain that's good at like higher levels of physics as the same type of person who's good at like organic chemistry or whatever. Fuck that shit. Different people probably have inclinations towards different topics or whatever. And then some people are probably better at the engineering or applied side. But
they all sound the same. Here's my little attempt at solving the mystery. Let me know in the comments below what you think. First, as evidenced, most billionaires don't do this. Most billionaires are silent. We don't know their names or their faces. These billionaires who claim to be like, I used to be into physics, I'm so into physics, are public billionaires. It is very important to them that they are also famous. They really care about their public perception, and they don't want to be seen as like the evil billionaire who exploited the workforce and destroyed the planet, right? Instead, they think, hey, I'm not evil, guys. I'm just like really smart. And because I'm so smart, I was able to make $1 billion. And the reason you didn't make $1 billion is because, unlike me, you're not as smart. I'm really smart. The only thing stopping you from having $1 billion is if you were smart. Hey, I'm really smart. I thought I could do physics one time. I'm really smart. At one point in my life, I thought about possibly studying physics, but I didn't do that. But the fact that I thought about it makes me really smart, which is evidenced by the billions of dollars I have. They could have been physicists, but thank God for us peons, they can throw pennies at our charities while they sit in their mansions of gold on their billions of dollars and be business, billionaire boss businesses instead of theoretical physics. You have 27 skill points, right? Every billionaire has like 7 luck points and 20 evil points. But there's a small fraction of the billionaires that live this public life, and they don't want to be seen as an evil billionaire. They want to convince us, no, they don't have any evil points. Actually, all 27 of their skill points are in intelligence, and that's why they have so much money, because they're smart. Can't you tell? They said that they had thought about doing physics at one point, so they're smart. And this is so weird, because on some personal level, they must understand the optics of the situation. Like, imagine being Jeff Bezos, and your whole identity is business guy, super skilled at business. I'm so good at business, I have $1 billion. And then imagine realizing that everyone knows you're not actually good at business. You actually just force the people who work for you, the human beings you employ, to deliver packages in unair-conditioned trucks, to have such a schedule that they're forced to piss in bottles and then store the bottles.
Okay, never mind. I see. Okay, all right. Okay, forget it. Never mind. All right. Like, I don't necessarily disagree with what she was saying about like the obsession with like, oh, I'm a big scientist, and then they say the most retarded things about science. This happens a lot. I think that's super cringe. But yeah, I can't stomach all the shitty econ takes. I can only handle so much. Oh, true. You could make the same video of her and just like swap in all of her econ takes. Maybe. What minor would you add to everyone's college degree to make the world a better place? I don't know, man. Psychology 101, stats 101. And sure, we can think of some other 101. Those are 2 big ones, I think.